Hi everyone, I'm here down in Oxford Street. Well, you wouldn't think it was Oxford Street, it looks like some suburban shopping street on a Sunday morning at the moment. This is one of the busiest and biggest shopping streets in the whole of Europe, and to me, normally it would be teeming with people here. You couldn't move. In fact, they've even restricted roads and widened pavements and put up all sorts of restrictions on traffic to get more people onto the pavement. But look at it, it's really empty. Some of the shops are still not open. John Lewis, still not fully open. They're open in the food hall and some branches are open. But I don't understand why they wouldn't open their flagship Oxford Street shop to the public. There are other shops open, but to me, business is not looking great to me. House of Fraser's open, and there's some clothes shops here and there open, but you can see that there's not exactly a big queue outside these shops. They're sort of restricting people going in, but you can just walk in really. There's no big problem getting into these shops. But what surprises me is the lack of people here. Generally, it's just really dire here for the traders, and you can imagine the rent on a shop here in Oxford Street. It must run into millions, and then you've got business rates, council tax must run into hundreds of thousands, and these big shops cost just a fortune to run. So it beggars. I mean, no wonder there's so many conspiracy theories going around, because if you wanted to have a plan how to F up the economy, this would be it. Close everything down for 3 months, then scare the life out of people, then stop them travelling into London by increasing the congestion charge, which has gone up, and they've increased the hours, then increase fares on transport and reduce the service, then insist on this, that and the other, and then wonder, you couldn't have done it better if you tried to mess up the economy. You couldn't have done it any better. And I'm just talking about London here. The first thing I think we should do is get rid of the London mayor, and perhaps get rid of the whole of the mayor's office, because right now they're just restricting traffic going in and out of London by just narrowing streets, and then they say, oh, there's too many emissions in London. Well, of course, if you narrow streets and put up more obstacles and more traffic lights, then traffic will slow down and be sitting in traffic and burning off more emissions rather than moving. I drove in today. It cost me £27 to just drive across the Marylebone Road into London. I had to drive, and now they've put the congestion charge up 7 days a week, so you can't even come down here on a Saturday or Sunday and do your shopping in what is supposed to be the biggest shopping street in London, Oxford Street. It runs for a whole mile from Marble Arch down to Tottenham Court Road, but look at it. To me it looks like a Sunday or a Christmas Day or something. It's just terrible for the traders, for the hundreds of thousands of people that are employed in the fashion industry in London, the hospitality industry. They're really, really suffering. Now, yesterday the government released some of their restrictions on lockdown, and they've said that from July they will be reducing the 2 metre rule down to 1 metre, just like the World Health Organization has been telling us to do for quite some time. But they're still insisting they're right. I mean, they talk about science, but the science says different in other countries to this country. So that is one positive thing. They're allowing restaurants and pubs to open under certain conditions, but they're allowing cinemas to open, so you can go and watch a movie, but you can't go to the theatre and watch a live show. They can open the theatre, but the theatres are not allowed to put on a live show. It's like saying, we'll open the airports, but you can't fly. Or, we'll open a gym, but you can't go in there. It's just absolutely crazy. And to me, we've got to get this economy moving again. Even Boris Johnson said yesterday that 26 billion has been guaranteed in these bounce back loans. Now, the ridiculous thing about bounce back loans is that I know many people that have failed to get them because they didn't qualify or the bank wouldn't give it to them. And then I've heard of other people taking out 8 or 9 bounce back loans for different companies, and they've got hundreds of thousands of pounds in the bank, which maybe they will not be repaid, and that's all going to be guaranteed by the taxpayer, by you and me. At the end of the day, these loans are guaranteed. We've got something like 15 million people who have received some sort of government support, and that's a fair proportion of the whole workforce. I'd say it's getting on for like half of the workforce. So you've got a massive amount of the workforce sitting at home doing nothing and being supported by taxpayers. And you've got companies, these companies here would have claimed back their tax benefits, the council tax that they pay on the building, and that's cost the taxpayer billions as well. The total cost of all this is easily going to come out to 300 billion over the year, which will take an enormous amount of time to repay. So I don't know why we can't get this economy moving again. I also don't know why in some countries you have to wear a mask. Now, I've got my mask on today, but obviously with me, but I haven't put it on here because I can't film with the mask on. But if you look around here, hardly anybody is wearing a mask. Look, they're all walking around, and you get some people who carry the mask in their hand or hang it off their ear. Look at her. Look, she's got it around her chin, but not on her face. I've seen other people carrying it on their wrist, like you see some motorcyclists in hot countries where they hold their helmet on their wrist while they're riding around with the motor on the mic. So to me, they had a chance yesterday to say, look, we'll get the economy open again, we'll get the economy moving, but you must wear a mask while you're outside, if they really believe that is going to help, as other countries do. Other countries have had this mask policy for quite some time. And also, when you go into pubs and bars and restaurants, a lot of them will have apps or ways of tracing you. So now this is more infringement on giving out your personal information. It's more infringement on your privacy, because you're going to be signing into apps to use to buy a drink, and they've got your details. It's great for business. It's a great way of collecting data, but it's just more lack of privacy in a way. So what can you do to help your economy? Well, personally, I know I'm talking about empty Oxford Street, but this would normally be teeming with tourists, and tourists are going to be deterred from coming in here at the moment because there's a quarantine rule. If you come into to Heathrow Airport, you're supposed to self-isolate for 14 days. How's that going to help the tourist industry? The tourist industry are tearing their hair out, literally saying, look, we need some help here, government. You're just destroying us. Hundreds and thousands of people, millions of people are employed in the hospitality industry in one way or another, and frankly, they're not being supported by the London Mayor, by Westminster Council here, and by the government. They're going to need more help. Otherwise, these companies will just go to the wall, and we're going to see more and more redundancies and loss of jobs, and companies going out of business, and shareholders will lose their money, pension fund holders will lose their money. It's just a catastrophe that will take years to pay off. And if you think about the war debt, the debt levels now have exceeded the war debt. We're already in debt to the tune of a higher figure than the whole economy is worth. And as you know yourself, you can't live on credit cards for long if there's no income coming in. So the war debt took until the debt at the end of the war, in the 1940s, took until 2006 to be repaid. This debt, I don't know how, it will be paid by our grandchildren, I think. So the only thing I would suggest for you to sort out your economy, because that's the important thing at the end of the day, is that we all have our own economies to deal with. I think the only way is to preserve your cash at the moment. Don't come here and spend your money in Oxford Street. I think people already listen to me on that front. I think now is the time not to be spending loads of money on clothes, but to preserve your cash, and if you're an investor, look for bargains coming up in the stock market, in property. Not right now, but I think we're going to see that. I think the stock market has got a way to come down. Shares are massively overpriced. Property is still overpriced in many parts of the world, including London, many parts of America, and in Australia in particular, one of the most overpriced area for properties in the world. So look for that. I think in the next year we're going to see another downturn. The stock market, I think, will go down, but if you feel you want to invest in that yourself now, that's up to you, but take your own advice. I'm not your financial advisor, but I believe that if the stock market is reaching now levels that it was just before the lockdown, then prices were already high at that time, and now with all the economic news, I just can't understand why stock prices should be so high. Although one explanation for that is that there's so much money in the system, there's so much money coming into institutions, pension fund holders and unit trusts and this sort of thing, and they have to invest that, and that's what's pushing up prices. So I think there will be a downturn in the stock market. Now you might say, well, I don't invest in the stock market. Well, hold on, have you got a pension fund? Have you got a pension scheme? And where is that money invested? The chances are a lot of it will be invested in property, in bonds, and maybe 2/3 of it will be invested in shares and equities. If you don't know, then you need to find out from your advisor or from your employer through the work-based pension scheme where your money is invested. Because if it's invested in the stock market, it is at risk, and you've got to look at that. When your money's at risk like that, you could lose 20 or 30% of that money overnight. So you've got to have a look at that, I think. And so that's the second thing. First of all, have as much cash as you can, have a reserve as much as you can. Secondly, look at your investments, look at where your money is now. Because if it's mostly in the stock market, I believe it's at risk. And thirdly, I think, is just to try and not be in so much debt. Try and clear as much of your consumer debt, your credit card debt as possible, because that's the big risk for you. It is a big risk also for companies who are in massive debt, and it's a big risk for you as an individual. So try and clear that. I would certainly rather be paying down debt than going down Oxford Street and buying a load of stuff that will go down in value eventually anyway. Obviously, you've got to shop for your essentials, but clearing your debts, I believe, is more important, because that interest rate at 18 to 20% will just strangle you, will destroy you. So those are the three things. Preserve as much cash as you can. Look at your investments. Look at where your money is invested right now. That means your pension fund. And a lot of people pay into a pension fund. They don't know where the money is going. I know this from my days as a financial advisor. They don't understand where their money is going, how it's invested. You say equities, they don't even know what equities means. So you've got to really look at this. I'll just take a comment here. Monica says, we have to take care of our own finances. Politicians do not care at all, as we know their wealth is secure. Yeah, right. Well, that's true in a way, because politicians get a very safe and secure government-backed pension scheme. It's the best pension scheme in the country. The accrual rate for that pension scheme is much higher than nurses and police. So they're fine. They actually MP's got another £10,000 a year to sort out their home office. They're fully employed. They're getting their I don't know what their salary is, 80,000 a year plus their allowances. Being an MP is worth 100,000 a year easily before the pension scheme is added on. So yeah, they are fine. And anybody in a government job in the government pension scheme is also secure, as long as the government is there to pay that pension scheme. But anyone in a personal pension scheme or a work-based pension scheme is at risk at the moment, because their money could be invested in the stock market. So that's what you've really got to look at. So look at where your investments are, and also pay down any credit card debts. You should not be holding credit card debts at the moment. You need to have a financial buffer. You need to have some money put aside. But if you've got £20,000 in the bank and you've got £20,000 worth of credit card debt, I would be paying a proportion of that off, because you're making virtually nothing in the bank, and you're probably paying 18 to 20% on your credit cards. So just watch out for that. So that's that. I'll just show you again Oxford Street. This is Oxford Street. If you just logged on, this is Oxford Street on a midweek afternoon in June, where we should be teeming with tourists out enjoying London. And where is it? Nowhere. And then we know now that theatres were not even properly open yet, and that's a big bonus for London. A lot of people come from all over the world to see the shows in London. And what did the government say? You can open a theatre, but you can't put on a live show. Have you ever heard anything so stupid and balmy in all your life? You can open a theatre, but you can't put on a live show. All right, is that like saying you can open an airport, but you can't have any flights going in and out? Yeah, can you think of any others? You can open a pub, but you can't serve any beer. I just don't get it. And at the same time, they're allowing cinemas to open. What's the difference? If you're sitting in a row of chairs in a cinema, what's the difference apart from the fact you've got live actors on stage? Do they think that the actors will give people coronavirus? I just don't know. I just don't get it. So that's all. I guess that's a bit of a rant today. I'm sorry about that, but I just get so angry when I see the government and the mayor's office, the London mayor's office, messing up the economy by disincentivising people to come in to London by putting up charges on the congestion charge, by extending it 7 days a week, by putting up fares on the public transport, by restricting public transport, and then the government by deterring tourists from coming into the country by putting on this stupid 14-day quarantine plan. And as I said, if you wanted to find a way of effing up the economy, you couldn't think of a better way of doing it. So this is why we have so many conspiracy theorists around, and this is why the BBC are telling you, don't listen to anything on social media, just listen to us. Yeah, right. Okay, so thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks to Daniel, Amir, Monica, Rodney, Dee, over there in Paris, Piero, Nicole, Sujat, great to see you again, Tanjiro, and Arshan over there in the Philippines. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. It's 30 degrees here in London, by the way. 30 degrees. Wow, it's really hot. That's why I got my hat to protect myself here. So thanks for listening. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll be putting back on my mask in a minute. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.